Welcome back. Welcome to this new section on Docker Compose. Now, let's start with discussing what is the problem that Docker Compose solves. In the previous examples, we looked at a web application which talks to MySQL. And we started web application as part of the container. We started MySQL as part of the container. And then we had to create a network and make them talk to each other. And after that, we created a full stack application. We had a front end talking to a back end, separate containers. With each of these, we saw that we needed to individually create a container and launch it up. If I want to launch both the front end and back end together, or if I want to launch both the application and the MySQL database together, I did not really have an option for that. I had to individually manage the life cycles of each of these containers. How about having something on top of your Docker images to help you manage the life cycle of these containers? When I have one or two containers that are running, it's easy to manage the life cycle. Now, as we go towards the microservices, where you'll have 4 or 5 or sometimes 6 or 7 containers running at the same time, launching each of them individually will be a big headache. And that's where a tool called Docker Compose is very, very useful. If you do a Google for Docker Compose and pick up the first result which comes up, you'll land up on this page. A Docker Compose is a tool for defining and running multi-container Docker applications. You can use a YAML file and you can configure all the services or all the containers in your applications. You can define multiple containers and start all of them with a single command. The important features of Docker Compose are: number one, multiple isolated environments on a single host. So all the things that you configure as part of your YAML, if you are configuring 5 or 6 services or containers, all these will be part of an isolated network. All these 6 can talk to each other, but outside world cannot impact these 6 containers. Docker Compose also preserves the volume data when containers are created. What does that mean? When you try and launch up Docker Compose, it will see if there are any other containers of this specific image which were created earlier, and if there are any volumes associated with those containers. If there are any volumes associated with the old containers, then it would make sure that those are also associated with the new containers. This would ensure that you don't lose any data. The other interesting feature is to recreate containers that have changed. So this only recreates the containers that have changed from the previous launch. So if I'm using Docker Compose to launch up 5 containers and only one of them has changed, if I launch up again, only the 5th container, the one which has changed, would be launched up again. The last important feature of Docker Compose is to be able to move a composition between environments. It makes it easy for you to deploy whatever you have composed to different kinds of environments. I would recommend you to spend some time with the documentation which is present in here to understand much more about Docker Compose. What we'll do in the next step is we'll start using Docker Compose for our applications. We will start with the full stack application and try and use Docker Compose to compose it. I'll see you in the next step. Until then, bye-bye.